Making sense of the day's news agenda. Power Perspective with TT on Power 98.7.
18 minutes before 11. The clock here is actually ticking forward, not backwards. 18 minutes before 11. Okay, so from water to cybercrime, I suppose. Now, a man has begun serving time behind bars after being convicted of digitally manipulating images of President Cyril Ramaphosa and other high-profile figures. Thabiso Tema, a 37-year-old, was sentenced by the Pietermaritzburg Regional Court to 5 years for cyber forgery and additional 3 years for cyber uttering and the unlawful disclosure of intimate data. The sentences will run concurrently. Let's find out more. Let's talk more about this. Joining me on the line is Specialized Security Services Head of Cyber Crime Investigation Unit, Anthony Boucher. Good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Let's just understand what's at play here. I mean, some of the terms here I've got to say I've never heard of before, like cyber forgery. Maybe let's just talk about that. Cyber uttering and unlawful disclosure of intimate data. Maybe just you can take us through each one of those charges, I guess.
Yes, all right. So cyber forgery is primarily addressed under Section 9 of the Cybercrimes Act 19 of 2020. It basically defines cyber forgery and uttering as offences, and more broadly, the act of creating, modifying, or using false or fraudulent data or computer programs to imitate or impersonate another person or entity. So this not only goes towards individuals, but also businesses. And then the jurisdiction and scope is actually quite wide, meaning that South African courts can actually try individuals who commit cyber crimes in other countries if those crimes affect people in South Africa itself. So obviously the South African Police Service is responsible for investigating and enforcing the Cybercrimes Act, and it's a very broad act. There are quite a few sections of it that how can I say, defines any form of online activity that obviously has criminality in it.
Now, a crime such as this, like a conviction such as this, is it secured? I mean, obviously it's a criminal matter, so that means that, a complaint doesn't have to be, the case doesn't have to be reported with the police to act, So, in this case, how did it actually happen? It's not a story I was familiar with until this conviction came through.
Yeah, look, what happens is people, they make themselves guilty of contravention of the Cybercrimes Act on a daily basis. The cybercrime law in South Africa is still a bit underdeveloped. We are going to see more prosecutions, and there are going to be a lot more cases where you actually do see people finding themselves in deep trouble. This happens because, while it can start off as a joke, taking a photo, editing the photo, not necessarily meaning any criminality in it, but in the process, damaging a person's reputation, damaging them financially and such. And obviously, just as a physical crime, any form of online crime is punishable.
And in this case, is it just, we're talking here about the person who actually created these images. Just for those who are not familiar with the story or the details of the story, this man that was convicted was... it was found that he had manipulated images by superimposing their faces onto pornographic content and subsequently distributed the altered images via WhatsApp. In this case, the only person convicted is the one that created the images. What would happen then to the people that would have received these images and then spread them as well in turn?
Well, those people could be prosecuted as well.
Mm.
The thing is, any form of distribution would be just as good as, creating the images. But it all goes down to intent, basically. It comes down to intent and obviously what the damages are and who is impacted, meaning what the impact on the person is or what the impact on a broader community could be. So distributing it could be just as illegal as actually creating it. But in this specific case, I guess the evidence was more towards the creator side.
Mm. Yeah. No, because I do, as you say, we are likely to see more of these type of convictions. As you said yourself, that there's a lot of people who are committing or who are violating the act that you referenced relating to this case here without knowing it.
Yeah, most definitely. And another thing is, you would be surprised if you knew how many of these cases are actually reported to us, and actually in more severe instances. There are cases where, the general saying, the keyboard warrior. So there are cases where, people on TikTok, for instance, are not only editing photos of, adults that they disagree with on the internet and such, but they would actually go as far as to go and search for this person's social media profiles, get photos of his children, minors in many cases. And they would do the very same thing as to edit the faces onto pornographic images, do whatever they like, because it's the internet. It's supposed to be a joke, that's what people think. But at the end of the day, it's extremely illegal to be doing something like that. And you can definitely, this guy got off easy. He could have faced 15 years in jail for what he did.
Yeah, no, it is fairly serious. The kind of stuff that the images that he posted, it is indeed something very serious. And you're right, the sentence could have been a lot heavier. So how do the courts then go about in determining the severity of the crime concern, and then consequently what is an appropriate sentence, just based on what you've just said?
Well, the severity of the sentencing and punishment would basically depend on two factors. What was the intent of the transgressor, meaning what was the motive? Was it to damage a reputation? Was it to cause mental or physical harm, to benefit financially perhaps? And then another factor would be what impact did the crime have on the victim? Now, this can be broken down into categories. Did the victim suffer financial losses, reputational harm, physical or mental trauma? Was there a broader audience affected by the images that they saw or, the crime being committed? So, there was a case a while back of a baby that was shamed on Facebook. It was a minor disagreement between a random man and woman who just had an argument on Facebook. And what happened was this man was trying to obviously say something to get to the lady, to just sort of, how can I say, to just get under her skin.
Yeah, to provoke her.
So we saw a photo of a baby on a profile picture. And this baby, was actually diagnosed with Down syndrome. And he started making fun of this baby, and
wow.
He said the most horrible things, So at the end of the day, he didn't just face action from this lady alone when she finally went and reported this case. Because what happened was this case, it gathered some social media and media attention. And what happened was the broader community of parents who actually have Down syndrome babies felt offended by this. So he was facing a class action.
Sure.
And the same thing happened there. He was quite lucky he got off light, but he could have received a hefty sentence for what he did. So a lot of these things factor into prosecution and punishment. And people need to be careful not to step over the line, especially social media users. The keyboard warriors, people who tend to say what they mean and mean what they say, but in all the wrong ways.
Yeah. Now, what role do the platforms, the social media platforms, play in the prosecution of these cases? I mean, that makes it perhaps easier to get to the source of these images once they are out there, once they've gone viral.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I mean, all digital platforms are obligated under the Cybercrimes Act to report cybercrime the moment they become aware of it. And then as far as, actually prosecuting and playing a role in that, the cybercrime law, as I said, is fairly underdeveloped, meaning that not all cases are reported, but just the fact that not all cases are investigated as they should be, it does not mean that we are not moving in the right direction. The authorities are sharpening their abilities to identify, evaluate, investigate, and prevent these crimes. And platforms like WhatsApp, Telegram, TikTok, email systems are actively working with law enforcement authorities. And I have to warn the public, especially those who do break the cyber laws, you would be shocked at the amount of data a platform like WhatsApp, for instance, is willing to reveal to law enforcement, in the event that a crime is actually reported. There's a lot of information that can be revealed, and a lot of information that can be used in court to convict such a person.
Yeah. And does that require a court order in order for me to get any assistance out of WhatsApp, for example,
Yes.
or from Twitter or whatever?
Yes,
Yeah.
It does require a court order, but once again, we are moving in the right direction. A couple of years ago, it was quite impossible for South African authorities to get information from international companies like Meta, for instance, your Google providers and such. But in the last 2 years, a lot of progress has been made. They are giving their cooperation. They are working with the authorities, and in some cases, they would even reveal information in the more serious and life-threatening cases without a court order, just with a valid case number and obviously the right credentials. So things are definitely moving in the right direction there.
So, as individuals, Anthony, how do we go about, trying to protect ourselves, or not even just as individuals, or even organizations? When you want to try and stop this abuse of your, likeness or your images or your company imaging and that sort of thing. Is there really anything you can do? I mean, when we live in the era of deep fake and so forth?
Unfortunately, just as with any other physical crime, you can never really prepare or protect yourself 100%. But there are things that you can do to assist in preventing you from becoming a victim. I mean, the first thing would be to make sure that your authentic contact information is available and reachable at all times, especially if you run a business with an online presence. This would, greatly assist towards your identity being stolen, things like that. Make sure that your business has an online presence, even if it's just a page with your contact information on it. It's very important. And then, for the individuals, separate your private and business profiles online. Don't keep them together. Keep your private profiles private, meaning set your privacy settings to only allow your friends to see your content. And then the other thing that, and unfortunately, this, how do they say, FOMO, fear of missing out, plays a major role, because a lot of people want to have as much as possible followers or friends or whatever on social media. But don't add random people as friends. Keep your circle small and keep it known. Don't add your private life on social media. Keep your children and content containing your children private and preferably offline. Mind the content you post online, especially photos and videos. Mind the private information you reveal about yourself in the background of a photo or a video. Do you have any idea how many people have actually given away their addresses or even more personal information about themselves by simply putting it in the background of a photo and not noticing it? They pull a funny face, take a snap, and in the background there's a car registration number which can be used to obtain all of these credentials. They don't think about things like that.
Wow.
In the event that you are actually targeted online, don't add fuel to the fire by reacting. Don't become involved in a tit-for-tat online battle. And, think about the fact that it only weakens your case, if you get involved in the same action, as the transgressor. And just as with a physical case, stay away from digital places where you don't belong. Don't make the wrong friends, and always be aware of the fact that anything you type or say or do online has consequences offline too. Read our
Now,
project, for instance, and educate yourself on the subject.
absolutely. Now, the case at hand here involves high-profile people that were, against whom this crime was committed. I wonder what level of success or what would have been involved if this were would this an ordinary member of the public, myself, just someone like myself, if I found myself a victim of something like this, would I be able to get the police to act on it here? Or, are there resources that are involved here? Or just merely opening a case would have secured me a conviction such as this one that has now been secured?
Now, obviously, this person drew a little bit of extra attention based on the people that were targeted. But we do see a lot of success with these cases, especially with, the general public. And unfortunately, as I said, one of the main reasons that these cases for the general member of the public, don't, in a lot of cases, don't go somewhere, is because they actually get involved in the tit-for-tat battles. They'll go and they'll transgress in the same manner online, and that information is available. And if you attempt to prosecute someone and that defense attorney has information that he can present about the complainant and say, listen, but this oak was doing the exact same thing to my client, then that case is not going to be going anywhere. So in this case, they were high-profile individuals, and fortunately, high-profile individuals have, officers that respond respectfully and they respond professionally. So it's not going to be the same case. You wouldn't be able to say, listen, but Ramaphosa was up there swearing this oak's mother on Facebook. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So it's one of these things where a conviction was basically almost guaranteed.
Yeah,
and that's good. That's a good thing, and that's what the general public need to do. Yeah. They need to always react professionally if they do react. Yeah. Only react when you totally need to.
When you absolutely have to. Yeah, I love that example that you gave, though. It's hilarious. Anthony Boucher, thank you so much for making time for us this evening. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and best wishes and greetings from the offices of Mr. Boles. May God bless you all.
Okay, Mr. Who?
Mr. Boles.
Who is Mr. Boles?
Mr. Boles, my boss.
Okay. Okay, no, pass on our best to Mr. Boles, and we appreciate Mr. Boles' work, that he makes you work at this time of the night as well.
No problem.
Appreciate it. Anthony Boucher, well. Thank you so much. You stay well too. He's with the Specialized Security Services. He's the head of cybercrime, of the Cybercrime Investigating Unit.